Hello, this is Joan Freedman, and this is Always, ALL for the Academy of Lifelong Learning at Cape Cod Community College here on beautiful Cape Cod. The purpose of Always is to shine a light on our curriculum. At Always, our coordinators, our publications, our catalog, and today we are spending some time with several of our coordinators. It is my great pleasure to shine a light on all of our coordinators who I feel, and pretty much anybody that's associated with ALL feels, are immensely qualified and who are all volunteer. This is a volunteer staff of coordinators, a volunteer board, and I like to call it ALL a mini college. It's a mini college inside of a college, and it's entirely voluntary. So anybody that volunteers their time, I am very pleased to be able to say thank you. We're in the middle of a series here of coordinators. This series is called Hail the Historians. We've spent some time in the past with our coordinators who teach writing and poetry writing, memoir writing, but this year we're looking at our historians. And today I have with me Paul Coteus and Steve Munroe, who are teaching the class. I want to get the name right because this caught my attention the first time that I saw it. The History of the Earth. Okay, guys, help me out.
A Brief History of Earth.
A brief history of Earth in 6 weeks.
Close. Yeah.
Yeah. Wasn't that it?
We played on the title of this book that I see both of you have a copy of, entitled A Brief History of Earth, 4 Billion Years in 8 Chapters. So we titled the course A History of Earth, 4 Billion Years in 6 Weeks.
Well, it caught my attention. And I've been taking the course. That, as I was saying with Paul and with Steve, that I was expecting a history course. And I learned a lot about history, but I learned an awful lot about science as well. And in the history of the earth, I don't know how you separate that out. But what I'd like to do right now is to introduce both Paul and Steve. And Steve, let's start with you. Could you just tell us a little bit about yourself and what your background is and what inspired this course for you?
Well, it's interesting that you start talking about history because I come from a family of historians. My father was a historian, American historian. My uncle, my cousin, my brother-in-law. So there were a lot of historians in my family, but my mother and my aunt were both chemists by background, and they were all school teachers at one stage or another in their careers. And so I got interested in science very early. I had 2 grandfathers from very different backgrounds, but they were both interested in how things worked, and I think that sort of transferred to me. And So I knew from a really early age that I wanted to be a scientist. And eventually I went to college. I studied chemistry, but I became fascinated with molecular biology. And I spent my career as a molecular biologist, teaching for 35 years at Marquette University. And so I think that's my background in a nutshell. We would spend summers on Cape Cod, and I met my wife in Boston. So eventually we decided to come here in our retirement.
I'm so happy to have you here on Cape Cod. another one of our immensely talented coordinators, and happens to be a vice president of the Academy of Lifelong Learning, is Paul Coteus. Paul, please tell us a little bit about yourself, and again, what inspired this class for you?
Well, so I have some similarities with Steve, but I came from we're a working class family. I'm the only one in my 4 brothers and sisters, our family that completed college, let alone go on to get a PhD. And I ended up in the field of elementary particle physics, which is a pretty esoteric field. But along the way, I dabbled in biology and chemistry, and I really like all the hard sciences.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's something that we share. My career started in particle physics at Fermilab, at the big accelerators. I worked on Long Island for a while at Brookhaven National Lab. I ended up teaching at the University of Colorado, met my wife. We got pregnant. I had to get a real job. I transferred to industry, worked at IBM for 30 years, helped develop massive supercomputers that tried to understand what the planet is made out of. I mean, tried to understand the fundamental forces that govern the universe. And when I retired and came here, I took a couple of Steve's classes, which are fascinating classes. And Steve knows his stuff, and he just teaches it so well. And so when he asked me if I would be interested in co-teaching this book covers a broad swath of science. I mean, it starts from the Big Bang, goes through the formations of the suns and the planets and how life evolved. I mean, really details of how life evolved that Steve knows very well, and takes us all the way through climate change and what we're facing. That's a lot of stuff. But I know some physics and a little bit of biology and chemistry. And Steve knows chemistry and biology and a little bit of physics. So between us, we couldn't write this book, but we can teach this book. Mm-hmm. And so been a lot of fun.
Well, I read this book several years ago when it first came out. Not sure what brought it to my attention, but I was really impressed by it because it's I should ask you, Joan, how you liked the book. But the book really grabbed me, and after teaching a couple courses more close to my own field, I thought it was time to sort of branch out a little bit, and so I wanted to learn some geology and some microbiology and some physics maybe, and review some chemistry that I hadn't had since I was in high school or an undergraduate, and I knew that Paul was very much interested in climate change, so I thought maybe I could attract his interest in this too. So it seemed like a good collaboration and a good way to just attack the subject of the book, because the author of the book is an extraordinarily accomplished paleontologist and geologist who single-handedly has kind of promoted the field of what he calls geobiology. And so just like Paul is saying, the book covers a huge swath of material from the very beginning to our present times. It's what some people call big history. There's a whole academic discipline now called big history, where you start with the creation of the universe and speculate on just what that was all about, whether we're in the universe or whether there's multi-universes, and then you sort of go forward in time and bring it up to the present. And this book kind of does the same thing, but in a much more focused way. It's focused really on the planet Earth.
I'm going to show you the book. The book is called Brief History of Earth by Andrew Knoll. And you asked me what I thought of it. I am a lover of books that I can sit down with, and every single word of it just jumps out at me, and I end up with everything is underlined and everything is underlined and highlighted. Absolutely magnificent book. Very brief, full of easy to read details, and that also another good thing of the class, besides these two extraordinary instructors who they'd say to us every now and then, "Do you have any questions?" And I didn't have any questions. I didn't even know what to ask, because it was almost like learning another language, that the different segments of time, and all the new vocabulary, just extraordinarily interesting. But the class was, as I said, so interesting because of the background of the two men that are sitting across the table from me, and the information that you brought in, I thought was really wonderful. You brought in slides, and even some things off of YouTube and Nova, that were then shared with us. So the course was like the course that doesn't stop giving. And so if anybody is interested in history, anybody's interested in science, big history, as Steve was just saying, the name of the course is The History of Earth, 4 billion years in 6 weeks. I don't know how you could not be interested in that. So I know a little bit about your class. I'll ask you, Paul. Why don't you tell us a little bit about the class? What's it look like? Somebody, for instance, it was a hybrid class. Explain that, and that you were able to use things from YouTube in that the people in the class could see it, people at home could see it. Could you tell us a little bit about the class look like? Because this is it's a class about history, but it was certainly a class of the future. So please tell us that.
Sure. So Andrew's writing this. He put his life's work into understanding how the planet came to be. He focused on some of the great extinctions that occurred, but it's a big, complicated tale, and he has a reason for telling it, because we're facing a pretty critical time right now with climate change. So we're trying to set the stage, or he's trying to set the stage, and as Steve and I are teaching the class, we're trying to set the stage for why is this time so critical? Why is this time so interesting? Why is it not anything like the other difficult times that mankind has gone through, even in our lifetimes? Why is this exceptional? And so to try to do that, we started from as far back as science knows how to go, which was the Big Bang. And then we want to talk about the evolution of how stars came here, and how did this second generation of stars feed off the material from the first generation, and what are the third generations of stars doing, and how did the planet end up with all these elements, and how did the moon get here, and when did life first appear on the planet, and how did that happen to be? And everything that we did using only known laws of physics. We just talked about how carbon was formed, how all the elements were formed initially from hydrogen, and how amino acids were formed, and how we think RNA was formed, strings of amino acids, and how science thinks DNA was formed, and how cells got coatings and multicellular organisms came up, and on and on and on and on and on. And we tried not to stray away from what we know to be true and why we know it's true. To do that, it helps to say more than just words. If you're going to do the Big Bang in 5 minutes, 10 minutes, let's pull on, who was it? who was our
Neil deGrasse
uh,
Tyson.
the cosmologist who did the video over Neil Tyson.
Oh,
Neil-
yes, Neil Tyson. Yes.
Neil
My-
deGrasse
my-
Tyson.
yes,
yeah.
right. Yeah.
My recollection of names is
Yeah.
hard. So we're in our classroom on campus at ALL, where I'd like to be, because ALL is it's a social thing. It's an education thing. It's a Chautauqua. We talk about what we know, but it's a social thing. But not everybody can make it to campus. So, and especially when it's snowing and sleeting. So we have a massive 75-inch display in the front of class, and we can run a Zoom session there. People can attend from home. People can attend from class. It's got really good audio capability, so we can have dialogue from people on screen to people in class.
Mm-hmm.
It's fully integrated with Zoom, so on our personal computers, we can pull up YouTube videos and switch over to PowerPoint slides. And Steve and I can switch back and forth. And so we're getting pretty fluid with the media, and I think it makes for pretty good entertainment,
But I think there's some challenges in it too, and I'm not sure that we've mastered them, because I came to the Cape to live full time in 2019, just 6 months before the pandemic began, and I was still sort of more in touch with my university back in Wisconsin. And I would hear about the difficulties that people were having adjusting to hybrid classrooms. And it's challenging to kind of stay engaged with both the students in front of you, and you would see pictures of classrooms where there'd be like two or three students sitting in the classroom, and the bulk of the class would be on screen. And I had a little bit of that feeling sitting in front of
We're seeing now that, if, for example, for our spring semester, the bulk of our classes are in person.
Mm-hmm.
Are going to be in person, so that swing might be on. I don't think that hybrid is going away. I don't think that Zoom is going away. Personally, I'm a Zoomie. I like being able to not be on the road and have an hour and a half class be an hour and a half, and not be a 2.5 hour class because I got to drive there. So I think that we are going to be dealing with in-person and hybrid and Zoom. I think that's going to be the way that it is. And I find that I've taken a lot of Zoom classes, and most of my instructors will apologize. They don't think that they're using the technology well enough, and they've all done fine. They do better than they think they do. So yeah, I think it's something that that it certainly is here. And as Paul was saying, we do have the technology to use that now at the Academy of Lifelong Learning. We're very lucky. It is something that's being used, I believe, in every classroom now.
It's an amazing
at the
system.
college.
Yeah.
At the college.
Yeah.
And it does. It does a great deal. It does a great deal. So as I said. It was a class about the past, but we were right in the present in terms of of how it was being taught with the D10. Do either of you want to talk a little bit about the Academy of Lifelong Learning, or what would you tell somebody that was new to the Cape? I'm going to let Paul take that one, because that should be right in his wheelhouse, given that he's our vice president.
Absolutely. I can tell you from personal experience, I knew one couple on the Cape when we moved out here. We'd been visiting our friends from Westchester County who moved out here 9 years beforehand. And they said, when you come, you have to join ALL. Why do I have to join ALL? You have to join ALL. It will set the pace for your life. So we signed up. And they were absolutely right. It's a little bit like being back on campus, which I always enjoy learning things. But it's also like coming to a coffee house. it is a little bit of a coffee house. There's a, you're on campus and you're at the cafeteria. So it's if there's going to be one place that you go to where you meet people who are like-minded, who like engaging on various subjects to learn about the world around you, ALL just packages that up for you.
Mm-hmm.
And before too long, you go there and you're saying, how do these people know all these things? And you're taking these classes, and before too long you realize, I might be able to do one of these things. And so you give it a try, and it works.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I'm now about to start my fifth different class. And I haven't been there all that long, because it's a way to sort of teach yourself something new, and then you share it with somebody else.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think that's very true, and that's why I've particularly enjoyed this course is what I'm learning in order to cover this material. I've gotten a couple textbooks on geology. I've pulled out an old microbiology textbook. I've been reading, much more broadly than I did as in my own career, in my own research. You tend to look at things more and more narrowly as you move along, and so I think both teaching courses and taking courses at ALL give you a chance to really kind of expand your horizons. And I also heard about ALL from just a chance encounter with somebody I was riding on a bus with, a stranger, who after we had kind of exchanged our background and talked a little bit about our experiences on Cape Cod, she told me that I should certainly look into these these courses at ALL, and so we were sort of primed for it when we finally moved here.
You'll find people in your class who probably know more about what you're talking about than you do. You gotta.
Well, I found that
be a little careful.
I found the student introductions that we did very interesting. I think in other classes that I've taught on Zoom, the student introductions would pass very quickly, and I wouldn't remember them. But at Paul's suggestion, we had the students write in brief introductory pieces about themselves. And I was surprised. About, I think, 3/4 of the students registered in the class, in fact, gave us introductions. And it was really fascinating, because I could go back and I could read them and sort of absorb them better. And just a tremendous variety of backgrounds and interests in the course. And it's really impressive, because some people have a very strong technical background. There are doctors and there are engineers and there are biology teachers taking your biology course. And the truth is that I've taken very few biology courses. I've studied molecular biology and chemistry. So it's kind of impressive. Yeah, the backgrounds, and people had backgrounds in geology in a couple of cases, and then of course many people don't have the backgrounds, no background in science at all, but they're obviously fascinated by science.
Right.
And so it's a very nice mix of people to be teaching.
And then we share those, so that people now know more about each other than they ever would find out, just meeting any other place.
I agree. I liked reading that. I liked reading, the background of other people that I was sitting in class with. So, I agree with that. That might be some, a technique that maybe we're sitting around discussing things with other coordinators. We could, we could mention that, because that was interesting. I want to get back to the class. However, the two of you have mentioned how the critical time that we're in right now, planet-wise, climate-wise, talking a little bit about the extinction that some scientists believe that we've started already. Really fascinating stuff. Would either of you like to speak a few minutes about that? About where we are in terms of our history of Earth?
Well, I think that this is a question about all forms of history. You say you have to know the past in order to understand the present and anticipate the future. And it's never really clear to me, what you learn by studying the history of the Romans, or the Phoenicians or the Medici's, how these relate to our current situation. But of course, people do take lessons from them, and they do see parallels. And I think the same is true of this science of Earth, that it's not always clear what we learn from the Permian-Triassic extinction about our own situation, or the late Ordovician mass extinction. But I think as you read about them and think about them, you in fact do see parallels. And one of the things that's caught me by surprise that I wasn't anticipating was I ran across a couple examples where academic scientists, either giving lectures before an academic audience or publishing an article in the academic literature, really published two figures side by side comparing what they knew of these ancient times. And when I say ancient here, I'm talking about times hundreds of millions of years in the past and the present. And so I just think that I think that probably, and Paul has mentioned this already, I think that probably is what motivated the author Andrew Knoll to write this book as he finished his distinguished career. The fact that we are facing some challenges in the present that may be relevant to things that happened on Earth long, long ago, and so we'll see.
Yeah, we're facing a couple of things all at once. We're transitioning from one energy source to another. And this has only happened a few times. We used to run on human power, then we had animal power, then we used combustion of wood, and now we use combustion of fossil fuels, which is maybe old wood. But so doing an energy transition is a huge thing, just to transition from one energy source to another, to a more sustainable energy source. But we're also altering our atmosphere and altering our temperature, causing huge, as the planet heats up, it's trying to re-equilibrate to this more energy, more solar energy trapped, within the air and the environment that we live in. And so we have to go through the repercussions of that as amount of water, rainfall falling, storms, whatnot, change all over the planet, and people have to move around or accommodate. And so these are unprecedented, absolutely unprecedented. And the third thing is that if we're not the generation that filled the planet, then it'll be our grandchildren. The population of the planet, our population, has doubled many times, but it won't double again. There's a story of the lily pond where lilies would double overnight. They're very prolific growers, and I've lived on ponds where enormous number of lilies. They doubled every night, and in 30 days, the lily pond was completely covered with lilies. On the 29th day, it was half filled. We're on that 29th day, heading to the 30th. So we've got several things going on, and we've never faced anything like that before. I think maybe compounding it all is a kind of general mistrust of science or mistrust of our leaders, and this is the wrong time for that to be happening. But anyway, look at your history and you'll see all that.
See what I mean about our coordinators being immensely talented? Their backgrounds, Steve's background, Paul's background, so immense, and they volunteer, to teach this class. So thank you both. I feel like I learn something every time I talk with you. I do learn something every time I talk with you. So I'm going to thank you again for being on the program with me, but thank you again for all that you do for the Academy of Lifelong Learning. And thank you to our audience. I hope that you've enjoyed the show. We really would like you to get to know us better. And you can do that in a number of ways. Please contact us at capecodall.org. That is our site, and you can get onto our catalog. From there, you can find out what else we're doing in terms of our writing series. We're going to be launching our new anthology. We have several social events during the year. We have a number of speaker events that go on through the year, and if you're a member of ALL, all of that is free. So please join us at capecodall.org to get on our mailing list. And once you're on our mailing list, you're going to get everything sent right to your devices. But it's particularly important right now. We're in the beginning of December that our new catalog is out. If you can get onto the capecodall.org, you can bring up our courses and see what's being offered in the spring. And like everybody else, winter can get a little bit long, and having something to look forward to, whether it's a Zoom class or whether it's coming into Hyannis and being on campus, we were talking before the show started, has gotten many of us through long days, and certainly helped me get through the pandemic. But we also are on Facebook at the Academy for Lifelong Learning, Cape Cod. We have our own YouTube channel that's called Academy of Lifelong Learning Presents Always, and we can be seen here on channel 26 on Mid-Cape on Mondays at 11 o'clock a.m. and on Thursdays at 6 o'clock p.m. We'd love to have you sign up for our courses. We'd love to have you think about becoming a coordinator if it's something that you've done in the past or something that you've always wanted to do, that we are always willing to talk to people who'd like to offer new courses. That, as I said, our catalog is out there. Time to start perusing, because I believe the registration is due the beginning of January.
Yeah,
I think it's
get ready to start.
Beginning of January. So there's about a month turnaround time in there for people to take a look at us and see if you'd like to join us in the spring. We also have, for the first time, we have gift certificates. If anybody knows of a friend who's been thinking about taking a course, or if some of you have a parent or a friend that don't know what to get them. What I say about gift cards is one size fits all, and they tend not to be returned. People would really enjoy them. So go to our site, our capecodall.org site, and sign up to get a gift certificate for somebody on your Christmas list. So thank you so much for being with us. I hope that you learned a lot about a brief history of Earth. 6 billion years? How many billion years, guys?
Just 4.
4 billion years in 6 weeks. And also a little bit about the Academy of Lifelong Learning. So for Paul and Steve and I say thank you for being with us, and goodbye.